Welcome guys, I am Vikram Kakar. Today we will learn how to create firewalls in Azure. In Azure, you create a firewall using the hub and spoke network. To understand the hub and spoke network, you can compare it literally with the wheel of a cycle. In a cycle wheel, you have several spokes which are connected to the hub. The hub makes sure that the spokes are stable and provides strong support to the wheel. Similarly, in a company network, for example, you will have several virtual networks which are called spoke networks. And there is a hub network which is a center. We build the firewall in this hub network. And this firewall will protect all the spoke networks which are connected to the hub network which is in the center. All the traffic from outside will first come to the firewall and will then be transmitted or routed to the different spoke networks and all the VMs within it. So to create this, we create two networks. One is the spoke virtual network and one is the hub virtual network where the firewall resides. I've already created a spoke virtual network. Within that, an NSG, and in the network security group, I've created an inbound security rule to allow all traffic. I've created a Windows VM without any public IP, as the outside traffic will first go to the firewall. Now I will create the hub network where the firewall will be built. So I'll go to the virtual networks and create a new virtual network called hub network. I'll call it hub VNet. I'll create a subnet. Now this subnet needs to be called Azure Firewall Subnet. Only then Azure will recognize it. And I'll create. Once the hub virtual network has been created, I'll go to search and type firewalls. I'll click create firewall. I'll select the resource group and I'll call it hub firewall, for example. I'm keeping this as standard because we only have one spoke network. We'll create our own rules. We'll use an existing virtual network, which is the hub VNet. And because we have created the VM without a public IP, all the outside traffic will first come to the firewall. So we need a public IP for the firewall. I'll call it firewall IP and I will create. The firewall has been deployed. Now the firewall resides in the hub network. And for the firewall to be effective, we need to connect it to the spoke networks so that the firewall can offer security and protection to the spoke networks. So we connect the firewall to the spoke networks by enabling peering feature within Azure. To do that, we will go to the hub network. And on the left, we will see peering and we add. So this will enable two-way communication. One is hub to spoke and the other is spoke to hub. So let's first do hub to spoke. And now we enable spoke to hub. And because we are in the hub virtual network and we are trying to create a peering connection with the spoke network, so I'll select spoke VNet over here. And finally add. The peering connection has been done. Now while configuring the firewall, we selected the option to add our own rules. So we go to the rule, and this is the NAT, which is the network address translation rule. We add, and we need to fill in few details over here. So what I'm trying to do over here is I'm trying to enable the RDP connection from my local laptop to the firewall. And then the firewall will connect me to the VM within the spoke network. We've already created a connection between the firewall and the spoke network. Now I need to ensure that when I connect from my local laptop to the firewall connects me to the VM within the spoke network. So I'll call it allow RDP. I give priority of 100. RDP. The protocol will be TCP. It will be IP address. I will remotely connect to the firewall using the public IP of the firewall. I'll put the source as any. In the destination address, I will put the firewall public IP. The destination port will be 3389. The translated address will be the private IP of the Windows VM in the spoke network. Remember that VM doesn't have a public IP, so it will be its private IP. Put the translated port, which will be the same as the destination port. And finally, I'll click Add. The network address rule has now been added. We have added the firewall and have added the rules. So all the configuration and architecture is now finished. Let's now test if the configuration works. So again, I'll go to the hub firewall and I'll copy the public IP of the firewall again. And I'll remotely try to connect to the firewall. We have logged into the VM now. Now I'll go to the command prompt and I can confirm that I have been connected to the Windows VM in the spoke virtual network. I connected remotely to the firewall using its public IP, and the firewall led my connection to the VM in the spoke network without the public IP. So all the configurations we have done are successful. So today we saw how to create a firewall in Azure using the hub and spoke network. We create a spoke virtual network and we create a hub virtual network. The hub virtual network is where the firewall will reside. It's like the central VNet. And you have the spoke virtual networks. We created one spoke VNet, which has the Windows VM and the subnets and the network security group. And finally, we connected both the virtual networks using the peering feature available in Azure. And we managed to connect to the firewall, and the firewall led our connection to the Windows VM. Hope this session is useful for you guys. Thank you very much.